They say a surgeon learns to separate emotion from instinct, to stay calm in chaos, to find silence in the middle of screams. That morning I failed. It started with the laughter, hers and his, echoing from the upstairs bathroom like a blade slicing through the skin of my reality. My hand was still on the front door. I hadn't even taken off my shoes. The world stopped moving, like my heart had slammed the brakes and everything else followed. It was supposed to be a surprise. I'd just gotten back from a 3-day trauma conference in Boston, or at least, that's where she thought I was. Truth was, the hospital had pulled me in early to handle a critical triple bypass. The patient survived. She was 26. A mother. Her 2-year-old clutched a worn teddy bear in the waiting room. That was the kind of moment that used to matter to me. Now I was standing in the middle of my marble-floored foyer, staring at a pair of men's shoes I didn't recognize and 2 half-empty glasses of red wine still beaded with condensation. The laughter continued. I moved slowly, deliberately, like I was prepping for a procedure, 1 foot after another up the stairs, past the family portraits, past the silk curtain she insisted we import from Milan. Every detail in this house, every piece of furniture, every work of art had my name on the check that bought it. She called it our life. But it was mine. All of it. Except her. I reached the top of the stairs and paused. "You're insatiable," a man's voice chuckled. Deep. Familiar. My stomach dropped. "You know how to treat a woman right," she purred, voice soft, syrupy, slick with lies. I pushed open the bedroom door. Steam billowed from the en-suite bathroom. My eyes scanned the wreckage of the room like a crime scene, sheets twisted into ropes, the scent of her jasmine perfume, the Parisian bottle I bought her last spring perched at a mocking angle. On the nightstand, a small brown bottle, melatonin, the label claimed. But I knew better. She'd been drugging me. Days off, I'd sleep straight through till the next morning. Now I knew why. Then he stepped out. Towel slung low. Still wet. Still smirking. My baby brother. Damon. There was a moment, just a flicker, where I saw the child he used to be when we used to race bikes down the hills behind our parents' house. That moment passed. "Well," Damon said, like this was some kind of joke, "looks like the prodigal surgeon came home early. Conference boring?" Behind him, she appeared, my wife of 8 years, wearing the silk robe I brought back from Tokyo, her blonde hair damp, skin flushed with someone else's pleasure. She didn't flinch. "I was tired of waiting," she said, as if I were late for dinner. "You're always late, Elijah." Her hand trailed lazily down Damon's chest. "Your brother, he understands me. He makes me feel alive. You're just sterile. Sterile. Like the ore. Like the life I built for her. Like the man who paid for the goddamn wine still wet on her lips." I saw red. I moved before I could think. A decade of martial arts training coiled in my spine. One clean punch. Damon's smirk shattered with his front teeth. He crashed against the bathroom wall, water spraying from the shower head still running behind him. "You psycho," he choked through blood. "Get out," I said, voice low, shaking with the kind of fury I didn't know I could produce. "Elijah, stop," she shrieked, grabbing at my arm, but I yanked free. "You don't get to speak," I hissed. "Not yet." I grabbed Damon by the towel, hauled him down the stairs, and threw him out the front door. The neighbors watched from behind curtains, phones in hand. I didn't care. I wanted them to see. I wanted witnesses. She followed, screaming, still clinging to the silk robe. "This is my house too," she shouted. "You can't just throw me out." I turned. "The deed is in my name. Like every check. Like every piece of furniture. Like every bottle of wine you used to toast your affair. You have 30 minutes to pack your things. After that, I'm donating them to the women's shelter downtown." Irony included. She glared at me, venomous. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "No. You will." And I meant it. Because what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that this wasn't the end. It was just pre-op. The house was silent. Too silent. I stood in the doorway, the aftermath of rage still humming in my veins. Damon's blood had dried on the tiles outside. Camille's perfume lingered on the staircase like the ghost of a promise she never intended to keep. I should have felt victorious. But all I felt was hollow. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated. And that changed everything. I locked the front door behind me, slowly, deliberately, like a surgeon suturing a wound shut. Then I turned and stared at the home I thought I'd built with love. I was going to take it apart piece by piece. I started in the office. Camille never used it, or so I thought. She hated the sight of paperwork, said it gave her migraines. But her perfume clung to the air, and when I sat at the desk, I noticed the smallest thing, a file drawer left slightly ajar. Inside, nothing at first. Just medical catalogs. Expense reports. But behind them, slipped into a worn envelope, was a stack of statements tied to an account I didn't recognize, a private account in her maiden name. Tens of thousands were moving monthly. Some directly from my clinic's vendors. Others I didn't even recognize. I logged into my own practice's billing portal. The numbers didn't make sense. Supply orders triple what we needed. Duplicate invoices. Overlapping shipments. Then I saw it all, equipment orders routed through a single vendor. Damon's company. I sat back. The affair wasn't the betrayal. It was the cover. The real wound was financial, surgical in its precision, like a scalpel had been carving into my clinic's spine for months, maybe years. And I, the surgeon who prided himself on control, hadn't seen a thing. Except I had in flashes. Staff whispering behind closed doors. A nurse once commenting how my hands trembled during a morning surgery. Camille laughing when I fell asleep in the middle of a dinner date. I blamed stress. Fatigue. Burnout. I was wrong. I opened the kitchen cabinet and found the box of my favorite tea and imported masala chai I drank religiously on my days off. I'd always found it strange how one cup would knock me out for hours. I chalked it up to exhaustion. But now I peeled back the packaging. The seal had been broken and resealed. Imperfectly. The leaves smelled the same, but they weren't just tea. They had drugged me. I stood there, staring at the box like it had personally betrayed me. I couldn't breathe. Then I picked up the phone. Devin Harlow answered on the first ring. "You only call when it's bad," he said. "This isn't bad," I replied coldly. "It's nuclear." Devin used to work in cyber crimes for the FBI. He could follow money through shadows and find the rot behind any pristine face. We were college roommates once. I went into medicine. He went into surveillance. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe a year. But he didn't hesitate. "Tell me everything." I did. In low, clipped sentences. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a pause. "You want revenge or exposure?" he asked. "Both," I said. "But I want the evidence first. I want truth. Hard, undeniable, weaponized truth." "I'll get it," he promised. "But you won't like what I find." "I already don't." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I tore through every drawer, every closet, every corner Camille might have touched. In the vanity in our bedroom, tucked beneath her jewelry trays, was a small black phone. A burner. It buzzed the moment I picked it up. A message blinked on the screen. "Tell him you're going to your sister's next week. I'll book the suite under my initials. Use Lorraine's pills again." I opened the message thread. What I found made my blood run cold. Over a year of texts. Camille and Damon had been orchestrating more than an affair, they'd been staging a slow-motion coup. "Damon, I jacked the order numbers again. He won't notice, too busy playing God in the Or." "Camille, he trusts you blindly." "Idiot." I almost pity him. "Damon, Grace covered the invoices. She's desperate. I told her you'd pull her kid's scholarship if she didn't." "Camille, use the chai again next week." "I want to try the shower this time." I couldn't read more. I dropped the phone like it was poison. Grace. My clinic's office manager. A single mother. Quiet. Loyal. Or so I thought. They had gotten to her too. I needed a drink. Instead, I grabbed my coat and drove. Devin's office sat above a nondescript warehouse near the docks, plain on the outside, but inside it looked like NASA and the CIA had a secret love child. Monitors, satellite uplinks, fiber networks, digital noise filters, it was an orchestra of precision. He greeted me at the door with a coffee and no pleasantries. "You were right," he said. "They've been bleeding you dry for over a year." He flicked a switch and one of the screens came alive, charts, flow diagrams, offshore account maps. "They're smart," he continued. "Camille and Damon set up a shell company offshore. They inflated your equipment costs, faked purchase orders, rerouted profits to an account in the Caymans under her maiden name. And Grace? She falsified records to hide the discrepancies. All of it invisible unless you were looking." "And the drugs?" I asked. Devin nodded grimly. "A pharmaceutical contact named Lorraine, Camille's cousin. Used prescription sedatives in small doses. Enough to knock you out, but nothing that would flag in a tox screen unless someone specifically tested for zoperhexidine. It's off-label and barely regulated." I clenched my fists. "They planned this down to the molecule," I whispered. Devin's eyes met mine. "And they're not done. They're accelerating. Big shipments. Bigger invoices. You were meant to find out soon. So they could flip the narrative." I raised an eyebrow. "How?" "They make you look unstable. Burned out. Drug-addicted. Camille plays the grieving wife. Damon the supportive brother stepping in to rescue the clinic." My jaw tightened. "They want to steal it." "No," Devin corrected. They want to be you. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Then I spoke. Slowly. Deliberately. They made a mistake. Devin looked up. They didn't kill me fast enough. Revenge is an art. Not a shout in the night. Not a bloody fist on cold marble. True revenge is a scalpel, silent, sharp, and precise. Cuts where no one sees. It removes, isolates, corrects. And when the bleeding starts, it's already too late to stop it. I wasn't just going to hurt them. I was going to expose them, at the height of their triumph, in the light of day, before every person whose opinion they once cared about. So I started preparing the stage. The first piece was Grace. I found her alone in her office the next morning, pale, jumpy, a coffee cup trembling in her hand. The smell of guilt radiated off her like antiseptic before a cut. "Dr. Hale," she began. I raised a hand. "Grace, I know everything." She froze. Her lips moved, but no words came out. "I know about the invoices, the fake patient records, the blackmail, your daughter's tuition. I know Camille used your past against you, the drug arrest when you were 19, the suspended license, the school's disciplinary board." Her knees buckled. She dropped into her chair, hands shaking. "Please don't fire me," she whispered. "They said if I didn't help, I'd lose my job. My daughter would lose her future." I sat across from her and pulled out a small recorder. I clicked it on. "You have two choices," I said. "Keep helping them destroy my clinic, or help me expose them and secure a legitimate scholarship for your daughter. One that won't vanish when their lies collapse." Her face crumpled. She reached forward and pressed the record button herself. "What do you need me to do?" she whispered. "Next, Camille." I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't scream or threaten. I simply vanished from her life. Publicly, at least. At work, I smiled. I scrubbed in. I performed a 10-hour liver reconstruction with steady hands and a clear mind. At charity functions, I stood next to hospital donors and spoke about innovation and legacy. I was everything they said I wasn't: composed, respected, indestructible. Behind the scenes, I was watching everything. Devin's surveillance grew tighter. Camille and Damon were emboldened by my silence. Photos of them began appearing in the social pages, attending events together, hosting medical fundraisers in my name, shaking hands with board members like they were royalty. Their image was carefully manufactured. The visionary and the martyr. Damon, the ambitious entrepreneur bringing new tech to the community. Camille, the tragic wife abandoned by her overworked genius husband. It was brilliant, surgical. They thought I was retreating. I was simply cutting deeper. 2 weeks later, Devin delivered the next incision. He handed me a thick folder. "You might want to sit for this." Inside were documents from a woman named Lucia Deneuve, someone I'd never heard of. Photos, contracts, a birth certificate, paternity test. I stared at the results. Damon wasn't my brother. He wasn't even my father's son. His real father was a man named James Morrison, a former pharmaceutical rep and convicted con artist who'd done time in the 1980s for medical equipment fraud. Lucia had been engaged to Damon before he met Camille. She'd found out about the scams, threatened to go public. In response, Damon destroyed her, ruined her credit, faked criminal records in her name, drove her into bankruptcy. "And now," Devin said, "she's ready to return the favor." I sat in stunned silence. My jaw clenched. Damon had weaponized our family's name, my name, to build his entire career. But he never was a Hale. The irony? Our father had known. For decades, he raised Damon anyway. Out of guilt? Pride? A warped experiment in nurture over nature? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was blood-deep treachery. I picked up my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to my event planner. "Book the ballroom at the Argentum Hotel," I told her. "Black tie gala. I want the guest list curated, every hospital administrator, every donor, every board member. No exceptions." She hesitated. "That's short notice." "Then spare no expense. The The second was to Sarah, my chief resident, my most trusted colleague. Schedule a staff meeting for the board, I said. I want a review of all equipment purchases over the last 12 months. Quietly, discreetly. There was a pause on the line. Elijah, she said, what's going on? You'll understand soon, I replied. The third call was to my bank. I want to open a new account, I said. Private. Protected. I'll be transferring funds immediately. No questions. The banker on the other end cleared his throat. Preparing for something, Dr. Hale? I stared out the window. Something surgical. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing the incision. Grace began recording every interaction with Camille and Damon. Every email. Every voicemail. She printed invoices, flagged discrepancies, traced every altered number back to them. Lucia supplied the paternity evidence. She even recorded a statement recounting how Damon had defrauded 4 other clinics before mine, using Camille as bait each time. Devin mapped the full money trail, shell companies, Cayman accounts, medical licenses borrowed from retired doctors. The scale was staggering. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the finale. The 10-year anniversary gala for Hale Medical. The night the lights would come on and the masks would come off. Camille and Damon had already RSVP'd. Their public personas demanded it. Damon even offered to handle the equipment display himself. Perfect. I approved it with a smile. Let them decorate their own execution chamber. The night before the gala, I sat alone in my office. Everything was ready. The evidence was archived in multiple drives. Devin had coordinated with federal authorities. Grace's recordings were timestamped and reviewed. Lucia's testimony was on video. The paternity test was notarized and certified. Even Camille's prescription history had been quietly pulled by a cooperating pharmacy board member. All I needed now was to show up and cut deep. The scalpel was sharp. And I was ready. The ballroom at the Argentum Hotel shimmered like a cathedral made of glass and gold. Crystal chandeliers hovered above the city's elite, surgeons, CEOs, hospital board members, philanthropists, all gathered to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Hale Medical. Every table was trimmed in white linen and blue orchids, Camille's favorite. The band played smooth jazz. Waiters glided across the floor with trays of champagne and caviar. It was elegant, flawless, surgical, exactly the way I'd planned it. I watched from the far end of the room, hidden in plain sight, dressed in a custom black tuxedo. I wasn't just the host tonight. I was the scalpel. Damon was already working the room. He stood near the equipment display, my practice's equipment, schmoozing investors, hospital board members, and supply reps like he owned the place. His new veneers flashed too white under the chandeliers. I could see him repeating the same line over and over. The Hale name represents precision, innovation, and integrity. While my brother focused on the surgery, I handled the future. He was so proud of that line. He'd rehearsed it. Camille drifted between circles of donors, draped in a shimmering silver gown that clung to her like a snake's second skin. Her smile was immaculate, her every move perfectly curated for sympathy and admiration. She was playing the grieving wife, the neglected queen. And tonight, she looked like royalty. I let them shine. Let them glow. Because when the lights go out, the fall hurts more. Sarah appeared beside me, calm and elegant in a midnight black dress. Everyone's in place, she murmured. Federal agents are standing by. Grace's recordings are ready for playback. And Lorraine showed up. Really? I raised an eyebrow. She asked to speak with you. Seemed nervous. Let her sweat a little. Sarah smirked. You're terrifying when you're calm, you know that? I'm not calm, I said. I'm focused. At exactly 8:30 p.m., Damon took the stage. He tapped his champagne glass and the crowd fell into polite silence. Camera crews rolled. Local media leaned forward. This was his moment. He adjusted his cufflinks and began. Distinguished guests, he said, his smile a masterpiece of arrogance, tonight we celebrate not only 10 years of Hale Medical but a revolution in medical innovation. What began as a dream between two brothers has become a beacon of excellence in the city. He gestured to the massive screens behind him. Our latest equipment line. The screens flickered. Damon blinked. Static. Then, a recording. Grainy. Shadowed. But unmistakable. His own voice. The great Dr. Elijah Hale, too drugged to notice we're dismantling his life piece by piece. Those sedatives? Worth every cent. The ballroom froze. Whispers bloomed like wildfires. Then Camille's voice joined the room, cold, cutting, unmistakable. He thinks I still care about that clinic. About him. The chai knocks him out for hours. I could host a rave in the living room and he'd never know. Gasps. Faces turned. People recoiled. Damon's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The recordings continued. Grace is rewriting the records. Lorraine's feeding me the pills. Elijah's too busy saving strangers to notice we're draining him dry. He doesn't deserve any of it. I built this. I made him. Camille's voice cracked on that one. Proud, venomous. I stepped onto the stage. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just clean. Surgical. Good evening, I said, taking the mic from Damon's frozen hand. For those of you just joining us, welcome to Hale Medical's 10-year celebration. Tonight's theme is transparency. I turned to the crowd. Every voice you just heard belonged to someone who told me they loved me, who told you they stood for innovation and care. But behind closed doors, they were building a different legacy. Federal agents stepped forward from the corners of the room. Camille Wells and Damon Hale, the lead agent, announced, "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit medical fraud, insurance fraud, unlawful distribution of controlled substances, and attempted sabotage of a licensed surgical facility." Damon lunged off the stage. Devin met him with a punch that shattered one of his brand new veneers. He hit the floor hard. Camille tried to bolt in the opposite direction, but Sarah was already there. "Your license is being reviewed by the state board," she said, voice ice cold. "And they've heard the tapes. You orchestrated this?" Camille spat, glaring at me as they cuffed her. "You destroyed your own family for revenge?" "No," I said. "I revealed the truth. You destroyed the family. I just made sure no one could look away." Then Lucia stepped forward from the audience. She looked regal, black dress, red lipstick, folder in hand. "This is a certified paternity test," she said, addressing the room. "It proves that Damon Hale is not a Hale at all. His biological father is James Morrison, a known felon who ran identical equipment scams in the 1980s. Damon's entire professional identity is a lie, built on a stolen name and someone else's legacy." The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Even the music had stopped. I turned back to the crowd. For 10 years, I dedicated my life to healing people. I saved lives. I trusted people. I believed love was a foundation. But while I was in they were in my accounts, in my tea, in my home. I looked at Damon and Camille, now restrained, their masks fully stripped away. "Let this be a lesson," I said. "Betrayal hides in clean suits and perfect smiles. But truth will always cut deeper." And I dropped the mic. 6 months had passed since the gala. The headlines were still fading, but the consequences hadn't. Camille and Damon were indicted on 12 counts each: conspiracy, fraud, illegal distribution, falsification of medical records, and reckless endangerment. Damon's company was dissolved. Camille's license permanently revoked. Grace's cooperation had granted her immunity and a new role in the cleanup effort. And me? I was no longer just a surgeon. I was something else now. The Hale Foundation for Medical Integrity was born in the fire they lit. I simply chose to turn it into light. We certified suppliers, audited hospitals, launched new transparency protocols. Other states called us for guidance. Sarah was promoted to chief of surgery. Grace became our compliance director. Her daughter? Accepted into medical school with a full-ride scholarship, this time legitimate. We weren't just fixing what they broke. We were building something they could never touch. Damon's trial had been quick. The evidence overwhelming. His sentence: 15 years in federal prison. No parole for the first 10. He lost everything: the fake companies, the phantom wealth, the illusion of genius. Camille's fall was more theatrical. She tried the sympathy card first, claimed emotional abuse, psychological pressure, exhaustion. But the tapes didn't lie. The texts didn't lie. Her tears dried up when the judge read the verdict. 8 years. Minimum security. White walls. State-issued clothes. No more galas. No more clinics. No more pretending. She taught hygiene classes to inmates now. A step down from neurosurgery, but oddly fitting. And yet, even after everything, there was one scene left. One wound that needed cleaning. One final incision. The prison's visiting room was cold, clinical. I waited under buzzing fluorescent lights while the guards brought him out. Damon looked smaller, thinner, pale. The smugness had rotted out of him, but something worse had taken its place. A hollow bitterness, a twisted defiance. He sat across from me, smiling with a cracked front tooth, still trying. "You came to gloat?" he rasped. "No," I said. "I came to close the file." I laid a folder on the table. It was thick, labeled, indexed. Every scam he ran, every fake invoice, every altered record. But at the front was one page, his paternity test. He stared at it. "I know," he said quietly. "Lucia told me. Morrison." I looked him up. "Died last month in another prison." I nodded. "You ever wondered," Damon asked, "why he did it? Why he lied?" "No," I said. "Because it doesn't matter. I stood. You used my name, my blood, my trust. And now, when it's gone, you think I'm here to argue about why." He stared at the floor. "You're not a Hale," I said. "But that was never your real failure." He looked up. "Your failure," I continued, "was choosing destruction over creation. Theft over work. Poison over healing." I leaned closer. "And if you ever get out, remember this, you don't get to build anything on my name again." Then I walked out, and never looked back. Outside, Sarah was waiting by the car. She was my partner now, both in the foundation and in life. We had started something far greater than revenge, a mission rooted in ethics, protection, and transparency. At the hospital, a new plaque had been mounted at the foundation entrance. It read, "Legacy is measured not by blood, but by the lives we protect." Camille and Damon had left ashes. We'd built firelight. That night, I opened a letter my father had left me. One final note written before his death. His familiar handwriting filled the page. "My son, if you're reading this, the truth about Damon has come to light. I kept his parentage secret not to protect your mother, but to answer a question that haunted me. Does character come from blood or choice? I gave you both the same home, the same chances, the same lessons. You chose to heal. He chose to destroy. You are my son in every way that matters." Damon proved himself a stranger long before the truth emerged. Use this knowledge with wisdom. Not to hurt, but to build something they can never steal. "Dad." I folded the letter and placed it beside my framed medical license. I'd been a surgeon for 15 years. I'd held hearts in my hands, stitched lungs, fought death. But this, what we were doing now, saving people from betrayal, corruption, broken systems? This was a different kind of surgery. And the wounds we were healing? They ran deeper than flesh. Epilogue. 5 years later, the foundation became a national authority. Our protocols were adopted in 12 states. The Hale Standard became law. Devin ran the compliance network. Harvey led forensic audits. Grace trained whistleblowers. And me? I still operated. Still stitched. Still walked into ORs where people's lives were seconds from vanishing. But after each surgery, I returned to a desk that no one could poison. A mission no one could fake. Some battles are worth fighting forever. Not for vengeance, but for prevention. Some betrayals break you. Others reveal who you really are. And sometimes the deepest incision isn't the one that cuts skin. It's the one that shows the heart beneath it still beats, strong, clean, and whole.